Hello, Phil here from Wings of Pegasus and welcome to another analysis video. If you enjoy this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. On the agenda tonight we have Phil Collins, and this is going to be coming from 1990, and it's going to be his performance of the collaboration track that he did with Philip Bailey called Easy Lover. And on drums here we've got Chester Thompson because Phil's going to be out front of stage here. Philip Bailey isn't performing at this, so he's getting a little bit of help vocally as well. And we're going to be having a little look at Daryl Stromer on lead guitar as well, just to break that down when we get there. But let's get everybody up on screen and see how they get on. I'm going to jump in here, otherwise I'm just going to watch it the whole way through. I've got to admit straight off the bat that this track, Easy Lover, and also the album by Philip Bailey, Chinese Wall, was one of those tapes that we used to have in the car. And yes, it was a tape deck that we used to put in the car. And wherever we would go, it was always this Philip Bailey album that was in there. So I know that album absolutely inside out, as well as this track, as well as the solo by Daryl as well. And a unique intro to the solo there that Phil actually gives Daryl Stromer. And the way that he plays that solo is absolutely spot on. If you don't know this track, you haven't heard it before, I'm sure you must have heard this before, but just in case you haven't, the solo is so good compared to what is on the record. It is absolutely pristine. There's even tiny bits in there that are slightly different to the album, but it's not worse than the album version. It is just so well put together by Daryl, absolutely spot on. And by the way, such a great solo in the first place, the way that it's been put together, and just having the crescendo in there and then a little descension at the end going back into the verse. But where do I start with this track? Because I'm already a fan of this song anyway, but looking at it and analysing it, obviously when I was a kid I didn't know what was going on, I knew that I just liked it. But now, when you look at all of the details and all of the elements that are in this track, straight away in the intro, we're fully in with, we've got some keys in there, some synth, we've got the guitar with a great riff, and the bass as well with its own unique take, unique riff that's going on, absolutely solid. But then how everything just complements each other. We've also got the brass section. And rewind back to the beginning and just listen to the intro and everything that comes in and out. It's not just every instrument playing all the time. They're all absolutely dipping in and dipping out, and we've got swells in there with the brass section, and we've got heavy chords on the guitar, but then we've also got clean chops coming in. There are so many things that are happening. It is absolutely a hook fest, this track, from start to finish, vocally but instrumentally as well. Quickly, let me just mention Andrew McCullough here on the left hand side, and also Fred White, I believe, on the right hand side. In terms of Taking On Anything by Philip Bailey, it's just a massive proposition because of Philip Bailey's range, where some of the notes that he hits are, and we're hitting high C's for fun here. It's one of those tracks, and especially the whole Chinese Wall album, if you are singing along in the car, you just have to bail and do the octave below because of some of the places that Philip Bailey takes his voice. But this rendition, the way that these two guys are absolutely nailing it, and especially Arnold on the left, he's absolutely all over it. The control he's got with his voice. And just a word on Phil Collins, because let's put this in perspective, that this is a guy who originally just answered an ad for a drummer for a band, and he had no idea that years down the line he would actually be at the front of the stage just holding a microphone. And especially when Peter Gabriel left Genesis, it was one of those things that he just stood up, he just put himself out there, because his voice is one of those voices that is so unique, and he's not trying to sing like anybody else. He's got his own sound, and if he was trying to sing like somebody else, it just wouldn't work. And just a shining example of singing your own way, or at least using your own voice, because so many singers try and sound like their favourite singer. But if you just go down your own avenue and sing with the vocal cords that you've got, they are unique. Of course, you don't sell over 150 million albums worldwide unless you can sing and unless you can write a great song. So Phil really has got so many strings to his bow. It's certainly not what he started out. Being a drummer, you have that natural barrier to the audience. It's almost like you can have your own cage, as they do sometimes live on stage. But having that wall there, it means that you don't have to be an extrovert, you don't have to be the showman. But Phil has gradually changed the way that he's played, and as a musician taking on these different roles means that now he's out at the front of the stage entertaining and putting on the show himself. And another thing about Phil is that in the UK he has come under some criticism from other bands. I say bands, mainly one band. They're a band called Oasis, who don't have very nice things to say about Phil. And me personally, I'm a musician myself, and I'm never gonna slag off any other musician, because I've never ever encountered a musician who's intentionally playing bad just to annoy people. It's not the way it works. You can always be a big fish in a small pond, but Phil Collins is a big fish in the ocean. I mean, look at what he's achieved in his career, look at his skill set as a musician, look at his ability as a writer. I think if you do start to have a go at guys like Phil, it's a really dangerous game to play because people will then look at your music and will analyze you as a musician, they will analyze you as a singer and a musician on the drum kit. Can you play drums? What level can you play drums at? How well can you play drums within your tracks? And how well can you sing? How many records have you sold? There's so many things that people will start comparing. So just accept music, accept the art, and look at the ocean. Don't look at the pond because it is so misleading. I'm just going to pull it back to that solo by Daryl as well because it is so well constructed and fits the track so well. That's such an important point about having a great solo, especially in a mainstream pop track, because you generally can't go off into a shred fest, but the great players will be able to melt your face in a pop track like we've got here. It is such a great solo that the guys who play will really appreciate the technical difficulty of what Daryl's throwing together, but then also the people that are listening to it that don't play guitar, they can just appreciate it melodically because it is so well put together. We do get to see a little bit of the fretboard action, the way that Daryl has these really quick slides that he throws in, the alternate picking, the emphasis on the notes within the runs, because everything absolutely pops out, and he does that by introducing that alternate picking and making sure that all of these runs are so concise. Another technique that's in there in spades is vibrato, which you'll find with all the top players, having control of the playing throughout the whole solo, so when you do spend any amount of time on a single note, the guitar is singing, and Daryl absolutely has that. And when you combine that with the ability to throw together quite complex runs with complex phrasing as well. Listen to some of the runs that he's throwing in there. It's not just straight pentatonics up and down. He's got that background in jazz as well. And these little elements really do pop out in these solos so that you can really appreciate the playing as a player on that deeper level, because Daryl throws together such cool lines and such cool runs. Let's just finish off the track. And what a tight ending as well. It's always great to listen to a track that takes you back to your childhood, but especially when it is this good and this well put together, the way that the brass section comes in as well. It's one of those tracks that you can just sit back, listen to it and enjoy it, but then if you do want to dig in there and start analysing it in depth, you better have a few years free to actually do that, because you can look around this whole band, and we've got a hell of a band here, just in terms of numbers as well, but you can look at every single instrument, see where they're coming in and coming out of the mix, and this is an example of a track that is a true rendition of the original album version, with everything that was on the album put onto a live stage. You've got every element coming in, and there are bands who literally can't reproduce it live. Even when they've got all the instruments that were used in the studio, they just can't get to that same level. Obviously, it's not the case here. You've also got the argument of playing live and not keeping it like the original, which a lot of rock bands, classic rock bands, hard rock bands, that's part of the appeal of their live show, is that they have the ability to reproduce the album live, but then they play something different live. They take it down a different avenue, which is great to hear, especially to get those one-off performances that you can only see if you were there on the night. But having this rendition, it's sometimes great to hear a track absolutely perfectly played as the album was. And just to be there, to hear this live must have been great. And this is one of those tracks that I would choose to analyze anyway, just because of the history that I have with it. It does really take me back. But thank you so much for suggesting it for me to take a look at, and keep those suggestions coming in the comments below. Let me know what you guys think, and if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe, and I'll see you guys at the next one.